From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The heat is on as temperatures climb. Scouts on the Pro Farmer Crop Tour head out to see who will win the battle for yield. Will it be the East?
The heat is the story in Illinois this week, but that derecho that hit on June 29th, it may have saved this crop. We'll have that story coming up today on AgDay.
Or the West?
In the battle of the East versus the West in Iowa this year, it looks like the West may win.
And how this possible record-breaking heat could factor in.
So yeah, we could be easily looking at 10 bushel off of what could have been.
Coverage of the tour continues right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when blood, sweat, and tears meet rain, wind, and sun. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. Happening right now, a dome of dangerous heat remains over the states we're visiting as part of the 2023 Pro Farmer Crop Tour. But there are signs the heat is starting to break in some areas. The tour ending the day in Minnesota tonight with scouts from the eastern and western legs making a final check on Iowa before arriving in Rochester. Now, taking a look at the daytime high today, you can see temperatures are expected to be down slightly into the 90s. That's compared to yesterday when temperatures were in the triple digits, including in Illinois and parts of Iowa. But how big of an impact could the high heat have on the crops that scouts are surveying?
Good news is we're well past pollination in all of the fields. I mean, it would be far more detrimental if this type of heat occurred during a pollination window. So at least we're past that part of it, and it may be a good thing that we're yet early enough that we're not too close to black layer in a lot of fields where the plant would just maybe just kind of give up or die down instead of dry down, we would say. So
the main impact will be on the final fill of the crop. So it may not fill out quite as nicely as we would like in some of those hotter, drier Western Corn Belt states where we're hitting 100 degrees on multiple days this week.
But Rippey says there may be a little bit more concern when it comes to soybeans as they continue to fill out the pods, saying it could impact yields, but says it's not a crop-destroying heat wave.
Coverage of the 2023 Pro Farmer Crop Tour is brought to you by Pioneer. Pioneer combines cutting-edge research with one of the largest local testing programs in the industry to help farmers succeed. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Despite the heat wave, scouts on the 2023 Pro Farmer Crop Tour press on. On day 3, the western leg traveled from Nebraska City to Spencer, Iowa. AgDay's Michelle Rook continuing to follow the tour for us, and Michelle, scouts traveled through some areas that were hard hit by drought last year. And while there are some lingering issues, things are much better this year.
What a difference a year makes here in western Iowa with improved moisture, bumping up yield potential. The key will be how this crop finishes out, and that's going to be dependent on the impact of this late season heat.
Last year, western Iowa dragged down the east due to drought, but while dryness lingers in some spots, the sum total looks better than 2022.
Absolutely. Western Iowa will be definitely better than it was last year, no question about it.
Parts of western Iowa have had a little more moisture than last year. So, the northwest part's still pretty dry, but as you move south, we see more moisture.
Yet rains have still been spotty, and so when Roger Servine scouted his home area in southwest Iowa, he found some variability in corn yields, which he is expecting when the combines roll on his farm this fall.
Corn, we will have farms that do 140, and we will have farms that do 200. So if we end up in that 170, using round figures here of 170 bushel, that'll be a win.
It would be a win because Servine is concerned about the impact of this week's extreme heat.
Since we haven't had rain in August, then it's going to start just cannibalizing that stock. But I think we can safely say we've lost 20 to 30 bushel easily on a lot of acres.
And the hot nighttime temperatures are also hurting the corn filling process.
The heat of 100 degrees is nothing new for August for us. For how long the temps are holding on for 5 or 6 or 7 days in a row. and not cooling down below 70 degrees at night is really going to hold the crop really hard finishing out.
So we're going to have some lodging that's going to hit us here in the fall that we're going to have to be a little cognizant about. And really just the test weight, the kernel size is going to be a big challenge to see how we finish out.
While soybeans are also struggling with the late season heat, especially where it's dry, there's more optimism about the resilience of this crop.
I guess obviously we're hot right now, but we started August cooler and wet, so the beans were getting those August rains that make good yield. Beans have been doing pretty good consistently. There's a little disease in some pockets in beans, but I don't see that widespread. So I think soybeans are probably going to look pretty good.
And so farmers may be looking at an average year, which will still outpace 2022. The big question is whether or not the West can make up for the problems in the East. In Western Iowa, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Now in the East on Wednesday, crews were focused on two I-states. Scouts traveling from Bloomington, Illinois to Iowa City, Iowa. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan joins us from there. And Tyne, Illinois has seen it all this growing season: hail, high winds, and dryness.
That's right, Clinton. And don't forget about that derecho. It hit June 29th. And while it did some damage, scouts here say it did more good than it did harm. And that June 29th derecho that hit here in Illinois may have been what actually saved this crop.
Soil moisture looks good to me.
Best moisture we've had so far today.
As scouts waded through Illinois on Wednesday,
I think as we keep getting further west, the beans are getting better.
they were less than impressed with fields surrounding Bloomington, Illinois.
The Bloomington area was very dry earlier in the year, created shorter nodes in the soybeans, thereby shorter soybeans.
Megan Yandel has been on crop tour for 13 years, and she says the dry weather in June definitely took a bite out of the crop here.
I personally thought that we would lose some of the top bushels just based off what the weather has been, and we're definitely seeing that.
The area was dry from May 7th to the end of June, but the derecho that blasted across Illinois on June 29th was a game changer.
I think across the whole state of Illinois, it really propelled everything forward and probably saved some people from having failures.
We got several inches, 2 to 3 to 4 to 6 up in Will County, Illinois. Just a big stretch. I feel that soybeans took it a little bit harder than what corn did.
One of those reasons may have been low overnight temps. The other, the smoke from the Canadian wildfires this summer.
The theory is that kind of dissipates that solar radiation. I think that kind of helped that plant stall out a little bit while we were dry until we caught up towards tassel time and we caught those rains.
Pockets of sudden death syndrome and phytophthora are showing up slightly across Illinois soybean fields. In the corn, Pettit says tar spot was confirmed in Iroquois and Livingston counties just this week.
At this stage in the game, I'm not overly concerned. Other than going into harvest, if it does blow up, we could get some potential stalk issues.
But with heavy morning dew and the fact 2021 was also a dry June, similarities and warning signs are starting to pop up.
I would say, in my opinion, we're 8 to 10 days early from really determining whether it's going to still be problematic this year or not. I mean, there's still a good 35% to 40% of that yield left to be packed in those kernels from a starch and dry weight standpoint.
Overall, it's a good crop in Illinois that was saved by both late June and July rains.
Around my area, it's probably decent. It's not going to be a bin buster, but it's not going to be a failure either.
All right, thanks, Ty. Now let's take a look at the day 2 results over in Nebraska. Scouts finding potential corn yield of 167.2. That's up more than 5% from last year, but a 2% drop from the 3-year average. For soybeans, 1,160 pods in a 3x3 foot square. That's up 9% from last year, but down 3% from the 3-year average. Indiana looking at 180.8 bushels to the acre for corn. That's up just over 1% from a year ago, but it's down 1.5% from the 3-year average. And checking on soybeans, coming in at 1,310 pods in a 3x3 foot square. Again, 12% higher than last year and up 6.5% on average. And tonight, join us one final time this year for Crop Tour Live, where we'll bring you the final tally from Iowa and Minnesota. You can head over to agweb.com and follow the link to Crop Tour. The live stream starts at 8 o'clock Central Time. Besides the heat, there are storms in the southwest to track. Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire is keeping a watch on things. Andrew.
And if we take a look at the tropics here, what was once a tropical storm Harold, it now just continues as basically just a low pressure system, and that's going to bring with it some cloud cover as well as some rain potential for not only El Paso but up around parts of the Four Corners region. And as we take a look at the flooding potential here on this Thursday, yeah, parts of the desert Southwest, parts of the Four Corners states that we're going to have to watch. Again, the potential here for a few heavier pockets of moisture from that disturbance off to our south. We're also going to be watching a cold front across parts of the Great Lakes, Ohio River Valley, see if we can get maybe one or two clusters of some thunderstorm complexes that could try to bring some added moisture to parts of northeastern Ohio, as well as Pennsylvania and parts of New York State as well as we head on forward into this Thursday. It's going to take a look at our crop photo of the day here and check out this image that we have here from Coopersville, Michigan. And work out in the field can be a lot more fun when you have a little one to tag along. Tyler, again, of Coopersville, Michigan, all smiles here with his favorite shotgun rider. He said she was helping him merge a fourth cutting tonight. She looks ready to take over. I'll more on your AgDay forecast in just a few.
Now you heard Andrew mention Tropical Storm Harold, the storm weakening into a tropical depression Tuesday night after making landfall in South Texas, bringing with it strong winds and rain, leaving thousands without power. While the storm is dropping a lot of rain, it does have some positives, including relief from long-term drought in the Rio Grande Basin. Meanwhile, Southern California is starting to clean up from Tropical Storm Hillary. The area is seeing flash floods and mudslides. In Bakersfield, one vineyard worked to bring in as much of the harvest as they could before the storm, but they say they didn't get everything and report they are already seeing damage. Another crop that could be impacted is almonds. One grower saying they will have to push back harvest a week due to almonds being too wet. Palm Springs, California saw more than 3 inches of rain from the storm, breaking the desert city's all-time daily summer rain record. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day of our commodity markets. Well, up next, we'll take a step back and look at the big picture when it comes to those markets in Markets Now. And later, police pledged to protect and serve, but this move goes above and beyond. A rescue caught on camera in the country. So beyond the rows of crop tour and summer pastures in the southern plains, what else is impacting commodity markets from an economic standpoint? AgDay's Michelle Rook asks a question in today's Markets Now.
Joining us with market analysis, Mike Zuzolo with Global Commodity Analytics. Mike, let's talk about the global economic situation here. China downgrading their interest rates, trying to stimulate their economy. You know, how concerned are you that we're getting close to another financial crisis?
I'm really concerned from a standpoint of the liquidity in this market, Michelle. I can kind of feel that sucking sound of money coming out of commodities, and that commodities maybe is the canary in the coal mine for a wider problem that's brewing. And I say that based upon the 10-year bond yields hitting their highest levels of almost 4.3% at this point in U.S. Treasuries. That was where we were around that 4.5%, 5% level during the Great Recession, or up against the Great Recession of 2008. And I didn't like the fact that we saw almost $4 billion pulled out of China's economy through their equities markets. This is the IIF data that came out this week, suggesting that that was only second to the big push out of money out of their equities going back to the zero COVID policy that they implemented. We really, in the commodity markets, need China to come in to support their overall economy, and the red flags are almost daily at this point with their economic data. They just announced that they were going to stop reporting youth unemployment. Why is that? Because it's probably over 25%. We already know it's a record high. They don't want that to get out into the Chinese market. So I'm really nervous that we're really close to the edge of stepping into a liquidity crisis through either Argentina, Russia, or especially China. That throws us into more of a financial crisis warning signal as we get into Q4. If I'm right about a recession here in the United States in Q4, that really does start to trouble me. And I think wheat and corn are picking up on that already.
Yeah, and the Fed says they're not going to back down here in the U.S. on interest rates, so that's going to impact money flow too, isn't it?
I think so, and I think you bring up a massive point, because Jay Powell, the Fed chairman, has said more than once that he is watching the equities markets, and so it may actually be a benefit to the commodity sector that the equities breaks down here several percentage points before they meet in mid-September to kind of give them a wake-up call of what's happening in the global economy.
Okay, thanks for joining us. As always, Mike Zuzolo, Global Commodity Analytics. That's Markets Now, and we'll have more AgDay coming up.
Back to our heat, we continue to track again that upper level ridge, that dome of high pressure that continues to be kind of, again, that heat that continues to soar with triple-digit heat indices as far north as Omaha, the Twin Cities over toward Chicago. The good news, though, as once we head on into Friday, that's when we're going to start to see that dome of high pressure starting to retract back out of parts of the Great Lakes Midwestern states, where we're going to again see those temperatures starting to climb on down. And with that, we're going to have to watch kind of two storm complexes, one across the far northern prairie and a few clusters of some showers and thunderstorms that may try to bubble up at any point during the heat of the day, especially during the evening and early overnight hours across parts of the Great Lakes and upper portions there of the Ohio River Valley. Then as we head on into Friday to close out this work and school week, we're going to be again watching another cluster of some storms up around the Twin Cities, Duluth zones, and then as well as across parts of Kentucky and over towards parts of Virginia and West Virginia as well. Looking at the map here, the radar, future radar here as we go throughout this Thursday. Again, we're going to be watching this front up to our north. That'll start to bring some relief here for some of that heat. But again, we're going to be watching for a few thunderstorm complexes. And again, that low pressure disturbance that was once Tropical Storm Harold, and that's going to bring with it a chance for some added moisture to the Four Corners as well as parts of the El Paso region here as we go forward, not only for this Thursday, but right on into Friday. Water estimates here, again, it's all going to be timely on where those showers and thunderstorms do decide to set up. If you don't find yourself underneath one of those showers or thunderstorms, well, you're going to remain dry here over the course of the lower 48. This high pressure dome, well, that finally starts to work its way back off to the west here. That'll provide with it some relief there for parts of the Corn Belt regions as early as next week. That's a look around the country. Let's take a look here at AgDay Select Cities. Going over to Rochester, Minnesota, a bright sunny day, high temperature nearing 90 degrees, overnight lows around 70. Portland, Maine, the cool spot, 74, mostly sunny. And going over to El Paso, we'll have to watch out for maybe a shower or two, high in the lower 90s.
Drover's Report on Ag Day is brought to you by Beringer Ingelheim, because you, the people who put cattle first, are second to none.
An update on the story we first brought you back in October. 3 men have now been sentenced for their roles in a frozen meat crime ring. Investigators say starting in June of 2021, the criminal enterprise based in Miami, Florida, targeted meat packing plants in 6 Midwest states. In total, there were nearly 45 stolen semi-trailers and loads of frozen beef and pork, totaling $9 million. Now, investigators utilizing cell phone records and GPS tracking were able to find and arrest 3 suspects. After pleading guilty to possession of stolen goods, they were sentenced to 2 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release, along with being told to pay restitution. A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit against the big packers brought by ranchers. The judge in Minnesota dismissing the claims filed by a group of cattle ranchers in a long-running case that had accused 4 packers of an industry-wide scheme to fix prices. The judge ruling the plaintiffs lack standing to pursue their central arguments, writing in his decision that there are too many stages in the beef supply chain and too much time between the ranchers' sale of their cattle and the purchase by meat packers to adequately establish standing for the Sherman Act and Packers and Stockyards claim. The suit had alleged the largest beef packers, JBSSA, Tyson Foods Inc., Cargill, and National Beef conspired in an industry-wide scheme to widen the meat margins between the cost of live cattle and the price of processed beef. Up next, a night that could have ended badly for a police officer in Maine. It's a critter rescue caught on camera in the country.
Closed captioning on Ag Day is brought to you by BASF, helping you do the biggest job on Earth.
Scouts never know what they're going to come across out in the fields during crop tour, but so far, no reports of this, a skunk. However, that wasn't the case recently for an officer in Maine who had to rescue a trapped skunk. The critter was wandering around outside a Dunkin' drive-thru with its head stuck in not one, but 2 plastic cups when the Old Town officer arrived. Now, the brave officer donned some gloves and freed the skunk amazingly without getting sprayed by the animal. The department said the officer, who had recently moved to the area, had never actually seen a skunk before. And there you have it. That's all the time we have this morning. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to join us tonight for the conclusion of Crop Tour Live at 8 o'clock Central. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.